What is going on today, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Jay. And what I've been doing here recently on the channel is a brand new weekly series called Monday Metal Mayhem, where every week I bring you some new metal riffs or an entirely new metal song that I've written over the course of the past week. This week is particularly special for me for two reasons. One is I'm using this new guitar that I just recently got on loan. This is the Yamaha Pacifica. This guitar lends itself really well to like the surf rock tones, funk, reggae, all that kind of stuff. It just had some really great tones in it and it's really fun to play. So we'll talk about the guitar later on in the video. The main purpose of this video was to write a song in a genre that I'm completely unfamiliar with, and that is reggae metal. I've recently been inspired by the band called Aurorawave. I've been familiar with them for a couple of months now, but I've just been listening to more and more of their music, and I'm really digging the vibe that they're putting out because they're just genre blending, and I love that because it's so unique and different from what's just out there. There's a lot of metal these days that, while I love it, a lot of it does tend to sound kind of similar. So this new genre, new to me, of reggae metal, I just thought it's something I gotta try. I gotta just give it a shot and go for broke on this one, and I think I did a pretty good job. So we're gonna get to the song in just a moment, but it's always fun to find something new and unique, and this band is definitely that for me. So they inspired me to write a new track in that kind of genre. So let me know in the comments if you think I actually succeeded. And this isn't a full reggae song. There's some heavy stuff in there too, so stick around for that. After we do the playthrough, we're gonna do a full mix breakdown in the DAW. We're gonna talk about all the my arranging and all that stuff, and then we'll talk about the guitar at the end. Anyways, I'll stop talking. Without further ado, let's get to that demo track now. Alright, so now I've got Logic up on screen, and I'm going to show you the original riff that I used to kind of base the entire song off of, which was this here. Very simple, 3 bar chords. I think it was A minor. Yeah, I just grabbed the guitar. I think it was A minor, E minor 7, add 9, I think, some shit, and then G major. Very simple chord progression, but it was effective and it kind of got the creative juices flowing. So that was the initial thing. I was going to do spanky clean, but I'm kind of getting tired of that. So this was a little bit grittier. And by the way, for all of the guitar tracks in the song here, I'm using Pliny X from Neural DSP. This was the clean amp with a little bit of the piezo pickup sound kind of blended in. And what else are we running? A little bit of drive here, compression to keep all the notes kind of even, no transient spiking out too much. Nothing really with EQ, just high and low pass, and then it was dry. All right, next up is the bus for the cleans. So first off, we've got the EQ, a little more shaping. I boosted a little bit at 2K just to give it a little more presence. After that, we've got the compressor. which is just doing some modest compression, nothing crazy here. I even blended the mix a little bit just to kind of keep it out of the way. I just wanted to subtly handle the transients that might be poking through. And I did sidechain this to, for some reason, the synth sound, which we'll get to in a minute. I guess I just wanted to kind of lightly duck when that synth came in. Soft knee here. Attack time is 11 seconds. I mean, these are my settings. You don't want to copy these. It's just kind of what I felt like seemed best for the song. Next up, we have Plenty. This instance of Plenty is just for the post effects. So I've got chorus, delay, and reverb. They're on stereo bus here, so they're just kind of adding a little bit to fill out the room, right? You got to have a little bit of that stuff. I didn't want it completely dry. After that, I'm running... I love this plugin, guys. This GSAT Plus here. It's just a nice saturation plugin that you can add any amount of odd or even harmonics that you want to. You can add several tube stages to give more or less of the effect. And there's a ceiling clipper. There's oversampling. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do on this free plugin here. I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It's one of those plugins where it just adds a little bit of warmth and character. Subtly. It's not so much that you really almost don't hear it, basically, is what I'm saying. So, I don't know. What it does really well. TDR Nova, I'll talk about this one every single week. I have the free version of this EQ plugin. It's a dynamic EQ, so I've got it cutting a little bit here. It's just, again, tamping down on kind of the low end that's getting a little woofy to make sure that just stays in place. And then finally... this trick I got from another channel. I think it was called the Band Guide. And he recommends putting the gain plugin as the last slot on every track so that if you want to run automation as far as volumes for the different various tracks, use the gain plugin instead of using the volume for the track. That way, if later on you want to make some alterations with the faders, they're not going to take that alteration. They're going to stick to the automation that you already pre-programmed. But if you use the gain plugin instead, you can mess with these faders all you want, and then you're still good to go. So I really like that idea. That's pretty clever, so I stole that one. Starting off, this song is, once again, I'm using cleans. I mean, I know. I'm sick of it myself. And my promise to you is that next week, whatever I play will not start with a clean channel. One last time, let's go through it. This was an ambient kind of vibe, and let's just check it out real quick in solo. Pretty funky, and then I did that little that slow down fade at the end. I like kind of doing that. It's a cool little transition trick. If you're not familiar with that, guys, in Logic Pro, let me show you that real quick. So when you go to draw a fade in on any region, generally it's just the volume fades out. But if you click right, you can select slow down instead of fade right there, just to give it that kind of like record is slowed down sound. I think that's pretty cool for transitions, and in this case, it just worked nicely. So yeah, once again, Plenty X, and this is probably a similar setup as the other clean channel. It just doesn't have any drive going on, so it's like spanky clean. After that, we get into some initial horns here, just some kind of stabs and some drums to kind of get the vibe going, and let's check that out right now. Right, so this synth here is actually studio horns in Logic. It's kind of one of their newer things, I think. And I just kind of used this preset here that I stumbled upon, which is like, all three of these horns together, just a nice little brass horn section to kind of fill it up, because horns is kind of a staple in reggae music, that much I know. And so I just wanted to put a little bit of that vibe into the song, not too much, so it's just kind of at the beginning. But I think it works well to kind of set the pace for the song and to kind of build it up to what's coming next, which is some of this heavy stuff. So what else do we have here? Right, tambourine. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the tambourine is just another way to kind of fill out in the background and give a little more pulse and movement to a song, especially when you've got such a slow BPM. This one's 90 BPMs. I did a lot of research before I wrote the song as to what kind of elements go into reggae music, because I knew pretty much nothing about it. And apparently a lot of reggae music is kind of written into the 80 to 120 BPM range. So I'm right in the middle of that kind of, 90 just sounded good for this song. And I should have actually been in 2/4 instead of 4/4, but we'll ignore that. Yeah, so let's get into the rhythm guitars now. Let's check that stuff out. And we'll solo those out too, because that's kind of the heavy stuff. And that's where it gets a little more, metal. And again, I'm running 2 mono channels into a stereo bus here. And I set these guitars at, I didn't hard pan them, they're both set to 50% because the cleans are all the way left and right. So I just thought I fill in the sound a little bit more toward the center, just slightly so. I think it just helps to kind of give the whole spectrum a little more fullness to it, as opposed to having everything hard pan left and right all the time. Makes a little difference. It's stuff like that while you almost don't hear it, you kind of do, if that makes sense. Anyhow, on the rhythm guitar bus, let's see what we've got here. First off, some EQ as usual. I cut a little bit in the mids there for some reason. I guess it just needed it. And then we've got Pliny. And this instance of Pliny, again, it's just running the post amp effects chorus, and that's it actually for this. So there's no reverb or delay on my rhythm guitars, just some chorus. Again, to just kind of fill it out, make it sound a little fuller. I think that's cool. Running GSAT again on this one. This time I'm using oversampling, and it shouldn't be bypassed. I'm using oversampling, I'm using the clipper, and I'm using the saturation. So there's 3 different kind of modules within this plugin. You can read the whole manual yourself if you want to learn how to use it. We're not going to do that today. But it just adds a little more fullness with some more harmonic distortion in there, gently. Next up, my favorite, guys, TDR Nova all day, every day. Let's see what it's actually doing here on the rhythm guitars. Very, very gently helping to tamp down the palm mutes and stuff, just so they don't kind of build up and get too, woofy and woolly sounding. After that, I stuck this plug in here. Didn't really need it. It's kind of it's a tilt EQ, and it's pretty cool. It's got a lot of different things you can do with this EQ, actually. All I did was kind of boost up the high end by 1.2 dB, and then the low end by 0.1. So it's doing almost nothing, but just a little more brightness to it, to the overall track. And then again, the gain plug-in at the end of the signal chain, because in case I want to do some automation with the volume, I'll use the gain instead of the volume in the automation lanes, which actually I did do here at one point. I dipped it down a little bit here toward the end. You'll see that in a minute, what I kind of did with that. All right, so everything at this point is going all at once. We've got the bass pumping, we've got the guitars clean and crunchy stuff all at once. Which I think that sounds really cool. Next up is this kind of slower section here. Well, it's not slower, but it's just kind of holding some chords here. You'll see what I mean. Oh no! So this next section here in the middle is just running some octaves, sliding up and down the neck to give it a little more movement, a little more melody. Just sounds cool. All right, and then that's kind of leading us into the lead section. Well, there's kind of a bridge, I guess you would call it, and then the lead section here. So the leads down here, let's listen to that stuff now. Yeah, so for the leads here, I wanted to write something that sounded a little off-putting or a little carnival-esque, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so that's kind of why I selected those notes. And just something that's a little bit playful and a little weird and funky all at once. I think it sounds pretty dope. I was originally gonna run the song without this rhythm guitar section here. So let's see what it sounded like without these chopped up chugs here. Right, sounds pretty cool. Not bad, but let's hear it with the chugs added in. So that's pretty cool. That was kind of a last minute thing as far as production goes, but I just felt like the song needed a little more metal and a little less reggae kind of toward the end. And then it just kind of all culminates at this final section here. And I've got 2 sets of rhythm tracks running with different riffs in the background. So this section here is kind of reiterating what we had back here. Just kind of bringing it back again. That's something I like to do in my songs, is kind of reintroduce something that was kind of previously used either in the beginning or the middle section, just to kind of, tie the song together, to bring it back to something that you've heard before, so that it doesn't sound like riff, 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 but more like, a melody and a song interlaced and kind of coming back. I don't know. That's just kind of how I arrange tracks. This song was a lot of fun to write and a lot of fun to play, but it was, like I said, very challenging for me because completely out of my element as far as reggae goes. I know nothing about it. My girl Lisa loves reggae music. I've just never really been a big fan of it. But like I said, Aurorawave kind of puts it in a new direction. It's got a nice chill vibe to it. It's kind of a summertime song. For the bass, what did we do for the bass here? It was pretty much just clean bass all the way through. Okay, so I'm running the DI from Submission Audio, Nick Nocturnal, that bass, and then we're going into Parallax this time, and I chose a preset, but then I kind of tweaked it a lot to kind of suit my needs here. A little bit of EQ here, and compressor. Now this compressor is running not too much, 2.4 to 1, and I opted for the vintage Opto here. I tried the various different ones in Logic, and Logic has great compressors. I really enjoy all of these for different reasons at different times. This one just sounded the best for me here. And I turned on the distortion to soft, just to give it a little bit more harmonic distortion, but not really enough to kind of break it up and make it sound like full-on overdrive. After that, it's going to my bass bus, where I'm doing more compression, harder compression, I think. Or not really. Actually, no. This compressor I'm using just as a side chain to the kick drum. So it's just dipping out whenever the kick hits. Let's check that out now. So while it is dipping for the kick drum, I just kept the ratio low, so that it wouldn't be, too substantial. You wouldn't hear a lot of pulsing in the volume. After that, more EQ. I don't know. I cut it at 53 hertz. Not really sure why. My moves are just, this is what I do, man. I play it by ear. I do it by ear, and if it sounds good, it works. A little more of this GSAT because I'm in love with this plugin. I'm putting it everywhere, all over the place. TDR Nova is great. Same thing. Same area here. We're doing the, where are we at? 108 hertz. A little bit of that. Ducking some of the bass there. Can barely even hear the delta. It's just barely touching it. And that's pretty much it for the bass. Let's check out the drums here. right, so for the kick, I'm using this EQ here. Then we're going into a vintage. This is kind of a pull tech. I'm doing the pull tech trick on this one. So I'm simultaneously boosting and cutting at the same frequency on the low end here at 60 Hertz. It just does this kind of trick where it kind of warms it up and fills out the low end without making it sound too subby or too thumpy. It's a nice little trick, which I learned from, YouTube videos. And then after that, we're using the distressor. Every single time I'm going to use this on my drums. And I'm actually running that pretty light because that's the kick here. So the bus itself, the final bus before we go to the stereo out, I've got one more compressor that is hitting it pretty hard. So we're at 20 to 1. Let's see what that's doing. Yeah, I have such a small amount going to this compressor that it's almost not even affecting it. So I'm so glad I showed you that. Yeah, so that's the track, guys. What do you guys think? Oh, let's also talk about the automation here. So like I said, I'm using gain as my volume automation for a lot of this. So, when you're stacking up different layers, obviously something's got to stick through. Something's got to come through as the main component for that part of the song, whether it's a lead or it's the chorus or vocals or what have you, whatever you want to kind of showcase as the main sonic thing for that section of the song. So obviously when you've got multiple layers going on here, you want to make sure that they're not just kind of stacking on top of each other and just, clipping and you can't hear anything because it's all masked. So I dipped down the rhythm guitars here during some of the clean portion, and then up here by the solo, by the lead work, I'm ducking all the rhythm guitars down just a little bit. What is it? 3.5 dB, 3.8 dBs during the lead section. And I've also got the synth in the background too. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. So I just want to duck some of that guitars down a little bit there. At the very end of the song, I wanted the post effects to drop out so the song just kind of cuts short and you don't hear the trails and the tail of the notes there. So I think I did some of that with the Archetype Plenty. Just went from active to inactive. So at the very last note, it just kind of ends. You don't hear the tailing delays. So it just kind of kills it. As far as the lead, same thing. I kind of dropped the delay mix at the end, so that also just stops delay. I use a lot of automation for different reasons, whether it's just volume stuff or I want to introduce an effect, more or less mix of an effect. The more you do this kind of stuff, you get very familiar with working with automation. I think you'll find that it really helps to bring your song kind of to the next level as far as, production value. Once you're good at, your gain staging, you're good at recording, you're good at layering and writing your song overall, this just adds another element to it. So automation is great. I mean, you can use it for, infinitely for different, whatever reason. What am I trying to say here? Recently, I've been trying to get away from using a lot of flex time and quantizing on my audio tracks, especially the guitars. What I did a little bit here, what am I running? 80% of whatever the quantize was for those tracks. And then for this here, like these choppy guitars here, I'm using that technique where you just cut all the silence. It's pretty easy to do in Logic. You just kind of select your region, Control X, it pulls it up automatically, and you can adjust how much or how little it's cutting, at what dBs it's starting to cut. I used it over here, and it's very effective, especially when you've got a heavily distorted guitar, but you want to have no sound in between your notes and your palm mutes. Yeah, I'm also using a noise gate, but this just helps to kind of get it to the next level where it's really, really clean and tight. So let's listen to it on its own really quickly here. So that's very effective too, because you can add that thickness and fullness of the distortion, but it's just not kind of muffled and kind of, blending into the next note. Instead of using flex time so much, recently I've been just doing that thing where you just kind of cut and move stuff around, as needed. Let me show you an instance of that real quick here. So I'd rather, if this is off time here, I would just simply cut it. You know, you cut something where you need it, and then use the slip tool and just kind of shift it around as needed to kind of line it up better. I'd rather do that than just too much quantizing because it introduces artifacts. It sounds very unnatural. You can time stretch your notes to make them fit a certain time frame. And while that can be a nice technique once in a while, but ordinarily it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound authentic and real, like it was actually played that way. So that's a track, guys. What do you guys think? Next up, let's talk about the guitar, because this guitar was very instrumental. Get it? Okay, so let's briefly talk about the guitar that I used to write this track. This is, of course, the Yamaha Pacifica. This is the PAX Plus 12. Not to be confused with the Pacifica PAC 112, which is a lower budget version of this guitar. This guitar currently retails for $1,200 here in the US. And in my opinion, this guitar is kind of on par with the Fender American Ultra Strat 2. It's got a similar vibe, same kind of build quality, tonal quality. So if you're in the market for that kind of guitar, you might want to check one of these out as well to kind of compare and contrast what's best for you. So first off, this has an alder body. It's got a one-piece maple neck, rosewood fingerboard with 22 stainless steel frets. Thank you very much. 25.5-inch scale length, which is typical. You've got an HSS configuration. You've got a push-pull tone pot to split coil the humbucker, 5-way selector switch, and the volume knob has that nice heavy weight to it, which I prefer. So it's not going anywhere. You're not going to bump it and accidentally knock it down. It's got a Goto 510 bridge. This is by far my favorite non-double locking trem system. It just stays in tune. It's amazing. I love this thing. The arm just pushes in, and then you can kind of tighten it up with this little, there's a tiny little tension screw there, so you can set the arm how loose or how tight you want it, and it just stays forever. It's perfect. It never gets loose on you like some of the other screw-in ones. Got a Graphtec nut, of course, and this nut in particular was cut really well because I never hear any squinking or binding when you're utilizing the trem system. It just keeps the strings nice and fluid. They just flow through there nice and easy. Stays in tune really well. Also due in part to the Goto locking tuners. They're actually the short posts. They're staggered, but they're short staggered. So you've got 3 really short and then 3 not quite as short posts. I love that set of tuners. That's like my favorite. These pickups are called Reflectone. Apparently they're made from the company that produces Neve products. I don't know too much about them, but they did sound really, really good. Yamaha. You know, they make motorcycles and guitars and lots of other stuff too, which is kind of weird. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it for this week's episode of Monday Metal Mayhem. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of the song, what you think of this guitar. Give me some ideas for next week too. Yeah, I'm always trying to look for new challenges of new stuff to write. Anyways, I want to give a huge shout out to some of the other content creators out there that are doing a similar thing as I'm doing here. We're all in the same community together. It's kind of like when you want fast food and you've got McDonald's on one corner and you've got Burger King on the other. They're both there because it brings the draw, it brings the people, right? You're going to choose one or the other. So it's worthwhile for them to actually have locations next to each other because you're just going to go to one or the other. So this community is kind of the same thing. There's a handful of us out there now, maybe a dozen or so that I've noticed that are doing the same kind of content. So make sure that you check out those channels as well and come back to my channel every Monday. We've got a new episode of Monday Metal Mayhem dropping for you every single week. This is episode 5. I can't believe I stuck it through to 5 episodes already. I'll have to use 2 hands next week. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Hit the like if you haven't already. Subscribe if you have not already. Hit the notification bells. Do all the good stuff. Engagement helps the channel grow. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. I'm out of here. See ya!